Okay, so let's just take a little, like, it's kind of like a little, pulse. And it's like, okay, who here from, we've been doing, this is the third class I've been a part of. This year's crop, let's give it like the grades, and so early crop. And so some of, like, we can see these apple trees are still in bloom, so you may not even know what the crop's looking like. But most stone fruit is well set. We're probably even thinning the crop. A lot of pears have already bloomed and have set, and now apples we're kind of in the middle of. And so given that and where we're at, what would you say for your trees? Who here, I'll start with top grades. Who's looking at like an A grade for your crops? Yeah. Good fruit set. Yeah, thinning. Yes, right? And that's a great one where it's like, hey, you could have an incredible fruit set, and then what does that mean? A lot of thinning. And so sometimes it's nice when the trees kind of like, they bloom good, but then the set is kind of moderate high, because then there's less thinning to do. And who here has the time to be meticulous in their thinning this time of year on your farms, right? So we got 1A. How about B's? Ah, okay, we got a B. Okay, couple B's. How about C's? Okay, let's talk about this in a second. D's? Okay, F's. No F's, wonderful. Okay, and then who here is not managing a crop right now? Adjacent, okay, cool. So it's really like, okay, what are the things that will determine a good crop? Let me turn that off. So chill hours. That is like one of the #1 things that is going to determine how well the trees wake up from dormancy and then bloom and then hopefully set fruit, okay? And so this year, on average, and does everybody know where to look for chill hours? I've tried to track them at my house, and it's a real pain in the butt. And so fortunately, we've got a weather station down at De La Viega, and so you can look up UC Fruit and Nut website, and De La Viega weather station is tracking chill hours for the winter, so you can put in your date ranges and you can know. And then it's really helpful, because then you can be like, oh, if you have a bad crop, you'd be like, it's all because of the chill, right? And so, but this year, we had pretty good chill, 600 hours. This is about average of what we're gonna get in Santa Cruz. And that said, we have so many microclimates all around Santa Cruz County. And so chill is the #1 thing. And so 600 hours is gonna be pretty adequate for most of our varieties. And as I've mentioned in prior classes, chill hours is not an exact science, okay? Chill hour, in the real general sense, is gonna be any hour between 32 degrees and 45 degrees. That would be a chill hour. And so most fruit trees are gonna require anywhere between 100 to 1,500 chill hours. And that's an accumulation of those hours from leaf drop until they wake up, break dormancy, okay? And so there's a whole thing now of using these different models where instead of, okay, hey, we're just waiting for these chill hours to accumulate, and then given good weather, then the tree is gonna wake up from dormancy and start the growing season. Now there's way more research into the whole concept of, hey, it's not as easy as that accumulation, because now we're seeing that it's more like, hey, if it's really cold, great, but then when it heats up, it actually negates those chill hours, right? And so we can have a really cold winter, but then all of a sudden, like this year in January, we were up into the 70s, right, in a lot of spots. And that can really be detrimental to especially higher chill varieties. And so while you'll look up the De La Viega weather station, and it's gonna say, 600, 700 hours, hey, but we had that heat spell, and how does that really affect our trees? And so that's something as orchardists, remember, working with fruit trees is all about a relationship, and it's really about this annual cycle. Every year, you're going to learn new stuff. And so you can know that, oh, hey, we had a really consistent cold winter. Hey, great, what's going to happen? The trees are going to bloom. It's going to be this beautiful 2-week bloom. Flowers are robust. They open all at once, and it's awesome, right? Other times when we have low chill, it's going to be like, you know, a quarter of the tree blooms, and then the other quarter, and you've got this staggered bloom time, right? That could last for 4 to 6 weeks, right? And that can be cause all sorts of problems, especially thinning, right? Thinning is more ideal if we have that big bloom, and then we know the whole tree, all the fruit is going to start sizing up all at the same time. And so we can do one pass on a tree, thinning, and we're done. When you have these staggered blooms, hey, we're gonna have to do multiple passes, right? More labor, right? So, where are we? Well, we're at the farm. Where are we in the season, which is, you know, early May, middle of May, and so what we're seeing is the effects of chill, right? And so we've got pretty good chill. And so what are the other determining factors from the winter that we're going to be able to look at these trees to say, like, hey, how the crop is going? Water. Yeah, big time. And so obviously over the winter, hopefully we got enough rain. We got enough. We didn't get as nearly as much as we had the last 2 years, but we got enough. But the main thing that we're focused on with our fruit trees is, did we get rain during bloom? Anybody? Rain during bloom? Show of hands? Yeah, a little bit, right? But not too bad. You know, 2 years ago, we've got this 12-acre apricot orchard over in Saratoga. Yeah, it's 2 years ago. We got 8 inches of rain during bloom, right? How much fruit did we get? Like 3. Yeah, exactly. It was very meager, to say the least, you know, very meager crop. This year, not too bad. And so really, it's like, that's what, you know, with all of the clients that we deal with, it's like, that's one of the #1 things we talk about in every year, even before this year starts, because people are, you know, really excited. Hey, the trees look great in the winter and the dormant season. They all got pruned. Hey, we've got a great soil fertility program all set up and planned. And then it's like, hey, this is all great, but if we get poor weather during that 2 to 4 weeks of bloom, could be all for naught, right? So this year, not too bad, and we're gonna, you know, walk through the orchard, and we can kind of see the effects of whatever, you know, both chill and rain, knowing that we got pretty adequate chill and not too bad of rain. Okay. So how about this? Who here, who is managing trees, have set up? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Are you going to discuss thinning today?
Yeah, for sure. Who here has dialed in or set up the trees in terms of soil fertility for the year? Yeah, raise a hand. Show of hands. Okay, but a little shy. Kind of.
Small orchard.
Okay, so everybody else hasn't done anything for soil fertility. Okay, good. I'm glad we are set up to show you. Okay, yes.
Can she still fertilize her apple trees at this time?
Oh yeah, yeah, and we're going to go over that. Huh? Yes, we'll go over all of that in a minute. Yeah, cool. Okay, so great. So we've got the environmental factors, which is going to determine how well our crop is looking this time of year, and also how well the trees are going to be already growing, right? And then now we're going to get into kind of cultural practices. And so are the trees ready to go? Do the trees have what they need for a good season of growth and fruiting? Okay. That's going to take, so that's pretty much what we're going to do today. And I'd also love for any questions and comments, as particularly pertaining to your to what you've got at your farm garden. Let it rip as we go. because that's the whole goal with these classes, is for you to be able to apply what you're learning here and with your trees, okay? And with a smaller group, we can really get into, really specific scenarios. Yeah? Yeah, cool. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with the ground and move up into the trees. And so we'll talk about, the first things we're gonna talk about are fertility. And so what do the trees need now, and how do we know if the trees are growing well? What is a vital tree? Is there high vitality, low vitality, moderate vitality? Does anybody know what vitality means?
It's not the same as vigor, I remember that.
Yes! I'm trying to stamp that term into y'all's minds. That's right. Vitality is, or let me back up. Vigor is an inherent trait in fruit trees, right? So certain varieties have high vigor, right? And so then vitality is, how is the tree expressing its inherent traits, okay? So if we're talking about apples, Cox's Orange Pippin is a low vigor variety, but it can have really high vitality. And so it doesn't mean it's putting on 10 feet of shoot growth a year. It's only gonna put on 12 inches, but hey, that's great for that variety. Whereas Mutsu, inherently a vigorous tree. And so if we didn't see 4 or 5 feet of growth every year, we'd be like, the vitality is probably low on that tree, okay? And then there are different ways to manage those traits pertaining to each variety, okay? So we'll talk about vitality by just walking down the rows, and it's pretty obvious, right? Oh yeah, that tree's not looking too good, and oh, that tree's looking great. And so we will talk fertility, we'll talk about soil care, soil prep, irrigation, so everything in the ground. Then we'll move up into the tree, so we'll look at crop management. And so crop management right now, a lot to do with thinning the crop down. Who here has thinned already? Starting to? Yeah. You thought about it? Yeah, that's good. And so we'll talk about, there's some plums. Unfortunately, these plums are so light. And so we'll probably walk down to the old block there where there's actually a pretty heavy set on some of the trees. And so we can go over thinning process and the timing of thinning, because the timing is really important to be able to get good sizing up of the fruit. So crop management, which is thinning, and then the other piece, all of our favorites piece, which is pest and disease management, right? And this class I've taught a bunch of times this time of year, and inevitably it turns into a pest and disease class, because this is when pests and disease really show up. Once we get these succulent leaves, fruit on the trees, that is when all of the pests really start to express. And so talk about, there's all of these different approaches to orcharding, and so there's a proactive approach, right? Which is what hopefully we're all doing, trying to get there anyways. Which is, all of the proactive approaches to, really good soil care to get the system humming, right? And then there's the proactive approach to pest and disease management, which is not, the old way of doing, pest control, which is the calendar spraying, right? Where it's just like, you don't even know if you've got certain pests, and but you just go out and you just spray, throughout the year. We're beyond that, right? And so knowing, hey, what pressures were on our trees last year, we can, in the wintertime, be proactive and say, okay, I know that these pests can be controlled in the dormant season, and these are the products I'm going to use, and I'm going to time it in the dormant season. And so then, now is when we can be like, hey, it worked, or it didn't, right? Or hey, it's a new pest. There's always a new pest, right? And then sometimes the pest that was a total pain last year doesn't even show up this year, So crop management, thinning down the crop, and then being, it's a little late for the proactive approach now. Now it's when we see pests, it's like I was saying, being responsive rather than reactive. Reactive just kind of has that like kind of tense feeling, and a responsive can be like, okay, what is the measured approach towards dealing with said pest? Yeah. So that's how we're gonna roll today. And then if we have time, there is an apricot that really needs to be pruned. And so may go over some basics on pruning in season, right? Because there's always those trees that we forget to prune, oh whoops, that block I forgot to do. Or apricots in general, if it's a wet winter, we don't want to be pruning during the rainy season, because then the disease eutypa can be spread way more easy and readily. And so apricots we may be pruning now anyways. So if we have time, we'll do some of that. Yeah? Anything else people want to cover?
Can I ask a question about last meeting?
Sure.
I pruned a plum to open center.
Yeah.
A couple of them.
Uh-huh.
I believe it was dwarf, but you were saying, oh, prune it so you can get to the fruit, right? And so I really took a fair amount off. And now it's growing back, but to me it seems stunted. And it's just did I maybe do too much? Or maybe we can wait on this question.
Yeah, once we start looking at some trees, you could be like, oh, it looks like this.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Anything else? Okay, good. Wonderful. So let's go right up here, and we'll look at the ground here. Okay, where am I going to be? I'll
follow you.
I'll go right about here.
Okay. And if I could be rude and get right almost. Whoa. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, just one thing, Matthew.
Yes.
If you want to show soil,
Yeah.
you have to tip it down.
Yeah.
If you hold it like this,
You can't see anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so show of hands. Who has turned their irrigation on for their fruit trees? Okay, wonderful. So water, really important. We're going to start there, okay? And so who here is using drip? Okay, who here is using micro sprayers? Okay, oscillators, any kind of overhead? So mostly, pretty much all drip. Great. So drip tube is definitely the preferred method for so many reasons. We can, after I'm done doing the top dressing, we'll see, we can cover it up, and then evaporation is even lower than it already is, because we're not throwing water all over the place. And we can really determine, hey, where is the water going? So if we're not concerned about watering the alleyways, drip is a really great option. When would we want to be watering alleyways? Cover crop. Yeah, if you're doing a summer cover crop, which we've got, back to that apricot orchard in Saratoga, we've got 12 acres of cots and prunes. And the soil when we first started was soil organic matter of 0.8%. This is not good. That's not good. And it was pretty much going towards sand, right? And so we were doing everything we could to increase soil organic matter, which includes what?
Composting, cover cropping, keeping the soil watered.
There you go. Yeah, so organic matter, compost, and cover crop. And so we were growing summer cover crop, and we still are. So we're doing a winter mix, then we terminate that, and then sow the summer mix. And so we're needing to water essentially head to head, right? And so it's a really great. And so over 4 years of growing a summer cover crop, we're up almost to 2% organic matter, which is pretty awesome. We are doing, we had been doing buckwheat and Sudan grass, which Sudan grass just, it is the powerhouse. It is amazing. It'll grow 6 feet in 4 weeks. And so we're coming through, well, it's a great mix to do with buckwheat because the Sudan gets established just as the buckwheat's flowering. And so then we can do one mow to terminate the buckwheat, and it cuts the Sudan grass, and then the Sudan grass just goes all summer long with a monthly mowing. And the amount of biomass you get from that Sudan grass is incredible. It is a very public orchard, and so the public was like, why are there so many weeds in the orchard, right? And so all part of the educational process, but now we said, okay, because the Sudan grass is taller than many of the trees, they're like, what are we doing, growing fruit trees or Sudan grass? Or they call them weeds. So we said this year we're doing a different mix. So this year we've got a mix of buckwheat, Japanese millet, triticale, black-eyed peas, and vetch.
What do you do to get rid of the Sudan grass?
So every year when we terminate it, we're just mowing every month, and then in September we terminate to then get the winter mix in October. We disc the alleys. And so we do very minimal disking, but yeah, that's really the only way to kill it. Yeah, even a low mow, they're just gonna keep coming back. Yeah. Okay, so that is why we would be watering alleyways, but drip is a really great option. And then depending on your soil type, you know, I've seen some orchardists just have one line of drip down the tree row, right? Because they've got a heavy soil. So if you think about a heavy soil, water is going to hit that soil profile and then it's going to keep spreading out, right? And then they just do a very long set, right? If you got a thinner soil, who here has a thin soil? Sandy loam? Yeah, okay. So you're gonna want more drip lines. Like I'd say wouldn't even be adequate. One of our sites where we do have a drip and a thinner soil, we have 6 lines, right? Because the whole goal with drip is to create a wet band all the way down the tree row, right? And if you've got a thin soil, wherever that dripper is, hey, water's gonna pretty much go straight down. Maybe a little spread, but very, very little, okay? And so I would be putting, you know, another one here, pretty much every 12 inches, all the way across, so you have this nice wet band. Because do roots grow to find water? They're lazy, yeah, I don't think so. Roots are gonna grow where there's water, right? So put the water there, roots are gonna fill this space, okay? And as we know, if we're not watering the alleyways with soil moisture in the spring, roots will grow into the alleyways. And then as the soils dry down, hey, we're gonna get some root die off, and we wanna minimize that as much as possible. So really check out your soil and know, okay, how wet am I getting the rooting zone, okay? And now is a really great time I mean, who knows, maybe we're gonna keep getting these rain showers, which has been pretty interesting. I love it and I hate it, right? Because what does rain also bring? Disease. Oh God, right? And I'll show you some. It's not too bad because the rain events have been pretty small and it's been kind of cold. Now if we get that warm rain, oh, it's ugly. It's like real ugly. So the best way to be out there checking for soil moisture is soil probe. Who has one of these? Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so soil probes are great. Kind of better than a shovel, just because, I don't know, you got to dig out a big hole. You're chopping roots. And so soil probes are real nice because you can run a set. What would you say this was last night? Yesterday? Yesterday. And so it's always nice, run a set, 24 hours later, come and check, hey, how deep did the water get? And then how wide, right? And then you're gonna know, hey, I'm gonna need more water. If I can't get the probe in and it watered yesterday, what do y'all think? That's true. Yeah. Gotta find the gopher run. Yeah, so it's a little dry, right? And so, whereas if I put it right where the irrigation set was, right, that's nice. And so we got down a good 15 inches or so, and I can tell that it got deeper than that. So whatever it ran for, great. But the thing is, we only wet a band like that. Where are the tree roots?
The drip line.
Yeah. Really think about the drip line, and where, you know, y'all came through and already skimmed. Cool. And so one thing you can do, you could spread these out, but I would say at this point, add probably 2 more lines, right? And the trees would really, really benefit from that.
Talk about putting rings around.
Yeah.
Irrigation rings
Yeah.
versus like lines.
Yeah. Like, do you like?
Well, that's what we have at ours. We
Yeah.
have like rings around that go around twice.
Yep.
And I guess like as the trees get established and larger,
Yep.
we're gonna expand the rings so they can
Yep.
meet the roots.
Yep.
Is there a benefit of that versus this, and vice versa?
You know, we pretty much do the rings in all of our projects that are kind of backyard setting, garden settings, small orchard settings. It's really for these rows where it's more production oriented, where the trees are tighter spacing. And then it's really just think that wet band. With the spirals, it's still, think about it, it's more of a wet circle, you know? And we generally start, or maybe because we're lazy, we don't have to come back to add more drip tube. We always start every tree planting with 25 feet of drip tube. And then we just have it spiral in like really tight to the tree. So it might just be like rings that would come out like this in the first year. So maybe like 3-4 feet. And it's tight. And then as the tree grows, we just extend, we don't add more, we just make the spiral wider, right? But it works great. Okay. Really great way to do it. Yep. And then, you know, I've seen the spirals or the rings. Some people will like not have an end cap and have it be a closed circle. Yeah. Don't do that. Does that make sense?
Then you can't add on.
You can't add on, and then you can't flush the line so easy. Because every spring, and so that's another thing. It sounds like most people have got their irrigation system on. Who here checked the filter before turning it on? Yes, well done, well done. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's like one of the notorious things of, hey, the water system just isn't working. What is going on? And then that's the first thing you check, filter, right? Because if you've got well water, or if the filter's just old, or rainwater, yeah, those filters can get gnarly. We'll have sediment, you know, 1/4 inch thick on those, and it's just completely blocking the flow. So before you take apart your whole system, which I've done in my early days, check the filter. You know, a lot of times you take a little toothbrush, something, or sometimes you just blast it with hose water, and you're gonna get the water moving pretty nice. So yeah.
Briefly about water requirements, like spring, summer versus, I do some dry stuff too.
Yep.
And so I know there's probably a lot of variability.
Yeah. Yeah, and so once you've got an adequate system, and adequate means, you know, watering out to the drip line of the tree, and making sure after an irrigation set, you go out with your probe or shovel, and just testing down, where is the majority of the feeding roots on our fruit trees, depth-wise?
Couple of feet.
Exactly. Top 2 feet is pretty much it. You know, that's where the most oxygen is going to be, and the most microbiology is going to be. And so the feeder roots are going to be in the top 2 feet. And then below that, sure, anchor roots will go a lot deeper, but those are for anchoring, right? And so that is really the wet zone. And so what you want to do really is, you know, never let the soil dry down past, you know, a few inches from the top. And so you're kind of chasing that water level. You're always filling it back up from annual rains, right? So before the rain, or just as the rains stop, then you kind of start probing. And as you get a little dry down, about 4 or 5 inches, then you start doing irrigation sets, okay? So then the question is, how often and how much, right? Really depends, right? It really depends on your soil type, right? Because heavier soils are going to hold more water. Thinner soils are going to not hold water. And then what's the weather like? What's the weather been like this spring? Pretty cloudy and foggy, right? It's been a very foggy spring on the coast here. You know, we've got sites over the hill, and you know, we're starting to get more days in the 80s. But it's been kind of like a slow spring. I'd say to see, you know, these, you know, most of them are petal fall is just about happened, but you can still see some open flowers. And so middle of May to be still dealing with, you know, open bloom, it's pretty late. It's very staggered. And as we look at when we start looking at the crop management, we'll be able to see the different stages of the fruit development, right? And so, yeah, how much to water, right? And so when it's foggy, the trees aren't transpiring as much. Trees aren't growing as fast. And so water isn't evaporating so quickly from the soil. And so in general though, once a week is good for a mature tree. Kind of the standard, textbook standard for California is about 1 acre-inch a week, okay? And so that's on all of our bigger sites, that's generally what we're doing. Now for more of like the trees with the spirals, or you could even calculate it using linear rows of the drip tube. In general, a tree like this would be giving about 15 to 20 gallons of water per week, okay? And then it could be once a week, it could be every 5 days, you know, if you've got a thinner soil. You got a really heavy soil, and then if you use a lot of nice mulch, you could be going once every 2 weeks, right? It really just depends, and the best way to really determine is by getting yourself a soil probe, and just get really used to just going out when you're doing your orchard walks. Just have it with you, and you're just probing for areas. And then you see trees that have lower vitality, aren't growing much, and then you can, you know, probe around, because this also helps you identify, gopher tunnels, you know. If there are no mounds from gophers, but the tree's looking pretty weak, this can find them, and you're like, oh, that could be definitely the issue, right, with a low vitality tree. Okay.
Think about like more frequent, shorter sets versus infrequent, longer sets.
Yeah. So when we're doing more frequent, right, and then shorter sets, where are we watering? Yeah, just the top couple inches. And so if we know that the majority of the feeder roots are about 2 feet, that's what we're wanting to water. So it's really like however long you need to water to get that. You know, if it's a thinner soil, you're going to get there a lot faster, right? And we don't want to waste water by having it go through the soil profile and away from the root zone. But in general, it's going to be a longer set, less frequently is more ideal. Yeah. Other things on water. Who here has automatic systems? Yeah. Do
you ever put antibacterial or anything in the irrigation?
For the drip emitters? Yeah, not so much. Since they're not underground, you know, they do make drip tube that is meant to be subsurface, right? And that actually has the emitters are impregnated with an herbicide, so roots can't grow up in there, which is really wild. We don't use that product. These are pretty good, and the more you can cover them up, the thing that we find the most of how they clog is through hard water. And so as that water then dries on the outflow in the hole, that can get crusty and then it can clog, right? But if you cover it up, which I'm going to show you in a second, then that doesn't happen, right? Because it stays moist. Yeah? Okay? Okay, so moving on from water. And then the other thing is, how often do we water throughout the whole season, right? Because trees are going to need more water. Trees need water all year. And so a lot of people, once a tree's fruit, let's say all our stone fruit, there's some peaches that come on now, right? Cherries are going to be coming on in a few weeks. So stone fruit come on early, and then they're all done. Some are done by, by the end of June. And so do we just say, okay, cool, you're done, thank you, and then turn your back to them? No. Remember, proactive approach of orcharding, it is a relationship. It is a seasonality to all of our care. And so after they're done fruiting, then they're going to be developing fruit spurs and branches, laterals, for the following year. So just make sure you keep up with care, and that includes water. Now you can start doing some what's called deficit irrigation. So that just means back off on water after fruiting. And a lot of times you can go down 30% of what you were doing. And what's nice about using controllers, if you were in a really good rhythm for the trees after probing, and you dial it in and you say, okay, I'm going to run a 3-hour set once a week. Great. After fruiting, you could dial, most irrigation controllers have like a percentage adjustment, and so you could go down to 70% of watering after fruit if you're concerned about water, which we kind of should be in California, right?
Are there benefits or like issues with doing that?
Really, it's like especially most prunus species, they're so drought tolerant. And it's really about, again, it's paying attention, right? If you see the trees really starting to flag, if the leaf turgor starts to really kind of droop or cup, then you probably want to adjust that. Or the following year, you just don't see quite the same takeoff, you might want to back off. Yeah. But I know like some wells, can run dry. I don't know if people are on city water, then it's like, expensive, right? So all of these are factors about water management, but it's definitely a real deal. And we've been blessed with, good rain for the last number of years, but drought is always around the corner, right? So kind of getting the trees kind of geared up for that kind of rhythm or system too can work.
So you're saying decrease it by 30%, the amount of water or the frequency that you're watering?
Usually the amount of.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, yeah? Other questions on water? Okay, so let's see here. Next up is looking at trees for fertility. And so who here does annual soil reports? Soil testing? Yeah? Good. Soil testing is really a great way to see a number of things. One, hey, what's in your soil so that I need to put something else in the soil, or something is deficient or too much of. And then you can also get readings of your organic matter content, which is really fun to see, especially if that's one of the focuses of, hey, I'm trying to build organic matter in the soil. We generally are doing all of our soil testing in the fall. And so we'll do all of our sites once a year, fall time. And then a lot of times we'll be adding those nutrients that are needed for the soil, sometimes in the fall, winter, but a lot of times it'll be in the spring, okay? And so getting those reports and then getting a custom fertilizer blend is actually a really good move. And I'll kind of walk this around here, and then I'll show you a little bit here for the camera too. So what we've started to do, especially on our larger sites, instead of just buying a generic, organic fruit tree fertilizer that might have, fairly high nitrogen with all the other goodies in there, once you get your soil report, or I'll talk a second about tissue sampling, then you can get a custom blend. And so Nutrien Ag, which is down in Watsonville, you send them your soil report and then, or what you need, and then they can blend it for you, which is pretty sweet. And if you got a high pH, and that's what you're going to be seeing in this fertilizer, which are these little bits of sulfur, these little discs, as well as you can just pass around that bucket. There's some phosphorus.
What are ideal pHs for orchard? Is it
6.5, 6.8, somewhere in there, right? Some of our sites are all the way up to towards 7.4, 7.5. Who's growing blueberries? What do blueberries like?
Very acidic.
Yeah, do you know what? 4.5, yeah. Yeah, 4.5 to 5, right? And so most of our soils are, it's all over the place. We've found soils that are that low, and it's like, oh great, don't grow anything but blueberries, right? And then, a lot of soils are more alkaline, over 7. And so, a little bit of soil sulfur in the fertilizer mix every year can really help. A custom fertilizer mix is really good. It doesn't cost that much more than just a bagged fertilizer, and then you're going to be getting the trees what they need. And so soil reports are great, but the thing about a soil report, it's really like, okay, what is in the soil? That doesn't mean what's in the tree, right? And so this time of year, who here has done tissue sampling? Or another type of sample is called sap sampling. Okay. It's a really great way if you're really serious about orcharding, and you want to be really serious, I know. Caveat, I didn't do any tissue sampling for probably 17 years of my career so far. And we've only just started to do it, and we've started to see really great results. For vitality of tree, and then also for the crop. And really with the crop, a lot of what we're seeing is, calcium cannot be adequate in a lot of the fruit. And then that's how we get, in apples, we get bitter pit. Who here deals with bitter pit in their apples? Anybody know what that is? No, so a bitter pit is that, what it looks like, it almost could look like scab, whereas there's a little lesion on the skin. But instead of scab is just cosmetic. Bitter pit is actually, if you cut into it, you're going to see almost this trailing. It almost could fool you, and you'd be like, oh, it's a codling moth larvae. But actually, there's nothing in there, and it's just a shortage of calcium for cellular development early on, right? And so, bitter pit is a real pain in the butt in apples. Certain varieties are really prone to it. Honeycrisp being like the number one. Jonagold is another one that gets bitter pit really bad. But yeah, doing these tissue samples, you can really dial in, not just, okay, I know what's in the soil, but then it's like in real time, what you do is, this time of year, we're pretty much right there, because when you're doing sampling, you actually take a few of the unfurling leaves, so very young leaves, and you want some older leaves that have already even hardened off, right? And so it's a mix of those. You send them in to the lab, ice pack, cooler, the whole deal. And then you get the readout of, hey, real time, this is what's happening in the tree, and then you can make some real-time decisions of, okay, we need to get these nutrients up into the tree pronto. So it's one of those things where, you send it into the lab, and then, you get busy. And then it's like, 2 weeks later, that email, right. And then you're kind of missing the boat. And so if you're gonna get into a program doing it, just know that it's all happening within a few days, right? You take the sample, you overnight it, they send it back within a day, and then you're out there applying. What's the fastest way to get nutrients into the tree? Through the leaves. Yeah. And so doing a foliar application of all the needed nutrients is the best way to do it. And then what time of day is the best time to apply those nutrients? Dawn, there you go, get up early. right? Stomatas are open. And then you've got the air blast sprayer. You guys have an air blast?
Sure we do.
Yeah, you do.
I don't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, I talked to Mike about it. Yeah, air blast sprayers are kind of the best way. You guys should get one here. They're the best. Because what it is, it's a huge tank and it's got a fan on the back with lots of nozzles. You've probably seen pictures if you don't have one. And what it does, it shakes all the leaves because you want to get full coverage. And until we bought one and then we started using it, we're like, oh, that's how it's supposed to be. How many of us are with our backpack sprayer, you know?
Dripping everywhere. Yeah.
You know, and it's just coverage is like, okay. But yeah, air blast is what because I don't know what y'all, but like we work on like full on backyard, hand scale, everything. And we do like field scale. And so it's like, what we're trying to do is mimic what we can get done in the efficiencies of field scale and like how do we do it on hand scale. Haven't quite figured it out for the, the Power Blast. We'll get like a fan out there with a backpack, I don't know. So anyways, that is kind of the, this time of year is really, really perfect to nail down like, okay, what are the trees lacking, okay? And then you can always add like all sorts of goodies in there. I'll talk about that with pests coming up. But that's the thing about foliar applications, right? You can sure add the nutrients that the trees need, but hey, what are some of these other like bio sprays and products that are really good for the trees too? And or if you're starting to get, you know, some pests, some aphid pressure, hey, you can add in some oils, you can add in various things at the same time. So foliar is great. Liquid is good this time of year now too, which would be a soil drench. And some of the time we'll do a blast of the tree and then also do a soil drench at the same time. Okay.
On foliar, do you have to get the backside of the leaf? So that's why you're blowing and...
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, really good coverage, you know. And we've got a couple different tanks, you know, with, you know, gas-powered sprayers, and they do a pretty good job. But until I saw this Power Blast, I was like, oh, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and are your applications multiple days, or is it like a one-time thing?
Usually it's a one-time thing, but it's a good question because, you know, then it's all about like how big are your blocks, right? And so are you gonna isolate your apricot block, right? And say, okay, this is all the samples just for the cots, and you're going out with that little recipe and mix. And then you got your apple block, and it's like, okay, doing a separate sample for that, going out for that. But generally speaking, if you do it now, it's really good because we're at that stage, you know, where cell development is happening and cell division is happening. And so this is when you want to get those nutrients in the tree, right? This is crucial time. Yeah.
When you're sampling tissue, how many trees do you need to get a representative sample?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice because the labs, they you know, they've got a whole instruction, but we're choosing from, you know, a couple dozen trees, you know, and trees of all vitalities as well. So we're taking them from some, you know, some trees that are pretty low vitality to the high vitality. And I mean, maybe if you're a huge orchardist, then you'll be doing it variety by variety, not even just types of fruit. But for most of our needs, we're just going to be kind of grouping it all together. Okay, we'll even group together all of our plums and apricots, okay, because they generally need the same stuff. And then apples, pears are kind of a different beast. Yeah. Okay, so that is a great way to really dial in what the tree needs right now. So what I wanted to show you, since a lot of you have not done the top dressing,
Matthew, is
yes.
it okay if I move this wood over?
Yeah, let me move it over here because I'm going to dump it too. Okay. Okay, so compost, which is this. Who here makes their own compost? Nice. Yeah, there we go. Compost obviously is not all created equal, right? Some of the compost made here up at the Chadwick Garden is just incredible. And like you take a handful of that compost and you're like, is it soil or compost, right? It's really hard to determine. The compost, most of the composts that you can buy, it's just the whole gamut. So some looks like surface mulch. You're like, whoa, that is woody. That's gonna take a lot of time to still break down. And if you were gonna actually mix it in the soil, that could cause some serious problems, right, of tying up nutrients. This one's not too bad. You know, there's still some woodsy material in there, and so I probably wouldn't add it to the soil, but as a surface top dress, it's really perfect, right? And I know I've said it, I think the last 2 classes, I'm gonna put together a resource list of all the things that we use, and I'm gonna do it, I promise. So compost can be added. As we know, compost doesn't have a ton of nutrients unless you get a custom blend of compost where you can get your fertilizers and amendments added to your compost. Can be really helpful in terms of labor saving. But for the most part, you can add compost kind of whenever. So, meaning we like to add it in the fall before the rains, or before the rains end, or whenever we get to doing the top dressing. Compost is an amazing form of organic matter, right? Mostly broken down, and it's just adding to the soil profile. It's inoculating the soil with the microbiology that we're going for, and it's part of the layering process that we do. So then it's about like how much compost do we add each year? Anybody? How much do you all add? An inch or two.
At my home, on my home.
Nice.
Not on the farm.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell they're doing on the farm.
Anybody else?
5 tons per acre.
5 tons per acre, yeah. 5 to 40 tons is what's recommended, right? Per acre.
Very precise.
Yeah. And it's really like how much you got, right? And you can definitely like overdo it over time, where it's like, wow, there's a lot of compost there, where it's not even like mixing in. It hasn't like engaged with the rest of the whole soil. And so, but really, especially pre-planting an orchard, that is all about as much as you can afford, right? 40 tons per acre. And then mixing it in, you know, disking or spading it in is ideal. Once we're into the established orchard, then it's about a light top dressing. And when we start looking at like an inch or two, and that's good garden terms, you know, of compost, if you do that on scale, that's a lot of compost, right? The first time I saw, you know, 20 tons per acre spread on an acre, I was like, that's not a lot of compost. It's really a dusting. And so, but this time of year is great, especially if you're just getting the irrigation going. And really, it's, you know, pretty much I'm spreading the compost wherever there's going to be some water, right? Do we need to throw it right at the trunk of the tree? Right? No. That is where the root crown is, which is a very important place. Trunk, root crown, and then it flares out, right? Anchor roots move down, and then feeder roots move out like that. And so we want to just keep building up this soil. This is kind of the magic zone, right, in between the trees. This is about good, right? And then I would take my fertilizer, right? Same deal. How much? You know, if you wanted to be really precise and you did a custom mix, you could figure out exactly, you know, how many pounds per acre. Then you could break down, like, so your square footage, whatever it is. But as you can see, it's roughly, you know, about 4 to 5 cups in between.
Matt, can you repeat the nutrients that you would normally use, like alfalfa?
Oh, like what's in here?
Yeah.
So the pelleted stuff, which is this stuff. This is fertilizer called True Organic. It is just like, who's used Sustain before? Yeah, Sustain is kind of like you can buy it at most garden stores. True Organic is very similar, same kind of pelletized fertilizer, kind of slow release because it takes a bit to break down because they're compressed. And then True Organic is like, I don't know, a sixth of the price, right? Yeah, it's so much cheaper. You can't get it at like retail stores. You get it through Nutrien. But yeah, we just get huge totes, and we're probably paying, $15 per 50-pound sack, whereas Sustain is, upwards of like $70, right? And they've got all the different, NPK ratios. They have one with calcium. So anyways, you want to get a little bit of, soil, compost, fertilizer contact like that. You can use a hoe. Obviously, it's way easier with moist soil, right? Get a little bit of mix. Like so. And then, once you, we try not to use too many staples, but it's kind of nice to at least staple the ends of the rows so it doesn't move too much. And then when you put your mulch on, just make sure that the drip lines haven't wandered too much, right? And then, mulch. Who here mulches their orchard? Yeah. Who here has done sheet mulching? Right. Were you trying to get rid of some weeds? What kind of weeds?
Like the creeping rhizomatous grass.
Yeah.
I mean, everything, you name it.
How long did the cardboard last?
Less than a year.
Yeah. I mean, it's brilliant. It's like, it saved us so many labor hours. And even if you do it just for a season or two, a lot of the perennial grasses won't die. Although I've had a good success at killing areas of the veld grass, which veld is definitely here on the farm. And it's a perennial grass and it seeds very profusely. And so we'll do, cardboard, 1 to 2 sheets, depending on what you're trying to kill. But at least it'll keep down all the annual weeds pretty nicely for that year. And then that thick mulch, and then if you just bring it in the mulch every year, can really decrease the amount of weeding you got to do. And so, mulch. How thick a mulch do you want? Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, it's like, what's your mulch source? How much could you get? And then how much time do you have to spread it? But we're talking, 6 inches at the time of spreading, and then that's going to settle down easily down to 3. But it's great. It's all just adding to this, biological kind of environment, building soil. So as we said, the top 2 feet is where the most active feeding roots are, and those roots grow up into soil, right? Especially if it's heavy. You got heavy soil. We've got some sites where we've been doing this program for years now, and there are roots growing up, right? Because remember, we want the, this is about as close as you want mulch or so, like that. And so we'll have roots growing up into the soil that we're creating. And so you're kind of creating little donuts, right? Not scones. We don't like scones, right? Donuts or bagels, okay? And so, as you can see, that was 1 wheelbarrow, right? That's a lot of wheelbarrows. I mean, we're talking probably 5 just to cover tree to tree. Yeah, that's a lot of mulch. But once you get it all down, what's nice is, then it's like you put in a lot of effort at once, and then pretty much the rest of the year, your irrigation's in, all the nutrients are in there, and then the weed pressure is so much less. And especially, Okela and his team have skimmed this whole row, and so then it's like all that work is then supported by the mulch. So then all of these annual weeds, you know, aren't able to get going. Yeah? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Are there mulches to avoid? We get dumps from various tree people, and I know for some of our stuff we incorporate into our veg, and we really avoid redwood and you know, certain stuff that might repel growth.
Yeah, pretty much. We've never found a mulch we didn't like.
Even eucalyptus?
Even eucalyptus. Smells so good. It's so nice. Yeah. Now, and remember, that's a surface mulch. You know, you don't want to be mixing it in with the soil. But yeah, I think just the breakdown process, and remember, it's all part of, you know, ideally it's 6 inches of mulch, which will then just compress to 3, and then you're going to check it out next spring, and you might have like an inch. I mean, it all breaks down. And we haven't had any bad effects of any kind of mulch that we've used, and we've used them all. Yeah.
Yeah, mine's sort of a logistical follow-up from that. So if we've been sheet mulching for 5 years and we still have a decent amount of mulch on the ground, before we do fertility management, are we raking all those wood chips to the side?
Yeah. Yeah, we just did it at a site. We've been building so much soil, and then we've add a lot of mulch every year, and we had to, essentially what we did, we knew where the drip lines were, and so we just essentially raked out right where the drip lines were, and then drilled a little furrow underneath the lines, and then, you know, broadcast the fertilizer just there, right? Covered it up, and then, so it's pretty quick. Yeah, I think we did about an acre in 2 days, right? So it wasn't too bad.
Are you putting it right around the drip just because like they can only take it up in the soil solution or like with water?
Exactly. Yeah, because if we put it, you know, the fertilizer out there, it's gonna sit there till next rains, right? And then that's the other point of, like, we used to do a lot of feeding of the trees at the time of planting, right? Because it's like so natural, it's all there, and you're top dressing. But then, you know, we're planting in January, the trees don't even wake out. We really want leaves on the trees before we start feeding the trees, right? And so now we're really feeding kind of in, you know, maybe late March, but really more like in April. And then doing 1 granular fertilizer a year. And then it's all about, you know, doing the tissue samples and then foliar. And then, like I mentioned, a root drench of a good fish emulsion, if trees aren't kind of performing well, can be beneficial too.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on kind of the top dress? Can I get a time check?
10:56.
10:56, perfect. Okay, so now we're gonna move from the ground. So this is really like, when I look out at, you know, a site that we care for, and it's just like all like drips in, we know they've been fed, mulch is there, it's just like, right? Because then you get to just work with the trees, you know? And so we're going to take a kind of just a little stroll down this path, and then I'm going to kind of point at trees, and you'll be able to tell, and ask you all, okay, vitality, kind of low, medium, high, okay? Let me grab a sip of water.
Matthew, I'll be right back. I just got to grab a battery.
Okay.
Plant anytime if your trees are in pots.
If the trees are in pots, yeah. I mean, anytime we're transplanting, because, you know, we're getting into citrus planting season, and so ideally it's not during a heat wave, right? So this weather is kind of perfect for transplant, but all the basic things you would think about, you know, for planting anything, yeah. And then of course bare root is the way to go, and that as soon as you get your bare root trees, which is hopefully in January, yeah. Ready? Okay, so let me just make sure I got everything I wanted to touch on. Okay, great. Okay, so let's take a stroll down here. Okay, let's look at this tree. This tree was pruned pretty heavy.
Oh yeah.
And what would you say vitality-wise? Low, moderate, high?
Moderate.
Huh?
Low to moderate.
Low to moderate. Okay, so what would, just shoot out there, what would kind of tell you that it was a low vitality tree?
Short growth.
Short growth? Anything else?
Sort of yellowed. Yeah.
Ooh, a little yellow, okay. And this could be perfect for tissue sampling, right? What's going on? Most likely low nitrogen, right? Because y'all haven't put on any nitrogen down, right? And nitrogen is one of those macronutrients that super volatile. So you gotta put it in the system every year, or else it's just not really there. And so yeah, lighter color is gonna be that. So yeah, the color and just maybe like the overall size. But what I like about this is shoot growth, right? This tree was pruned hard and it responded, right? And what I'm seeing in the growth response for this time of year, middle of May, and let me back this up. How long will fruit trees, deciduous fruit trees, grow, put on shoot growth? How long will it do that into the year?
End of the season.
Huh?
The front end of the season.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of us think that, the fruit trees, they're going to be growing all the way till dormancy, right? But really, these trees are going to, huge variation, but like they're going to bloom anywhere from, end of February all the way till, some of those apples now, right? And so they bloom first, put on some basal leaves, and now they're putting on shoot growth. Shoot growth is only going to happen until July-ish. Then they set a terminal bud, and there's no more growth upward and outward, shoot growth, for the rest of the year. That's another one of these reasons of like really dialing in the nutrients now, or even a month ago, to make sure in this kind of this period of growth, the trees have what they need to do it, because they're not going to do it later. Okay, so this is the moment. So when I'm looking at this tree, we pruned it hard. And we're getting a great reaction. And why I say a great reaction is because you see how the leaves, they're kind of like flopping over a little, but that's very typical for certain plum varieties, where as they grow, they kind of just are unfurling like this, right? And these leaves are still growing. There's more leaves growing behind it. It's still unfurling. Whereas if they were terminal by now, right, and the tree is just leafed out, that's a sign of like very low vitality. We want to see growth. So while the tree's kind of small, it's kind of a little light in color, I'm actually saying this is moderate to high vitality, right? Because it has responded well. Okay? Check it out. And so we can see on this tree, what do we see on this?
Kind of the same thing.
Yeah, right? And now this tree didn't get pruned as hard, so there's more structure, and we've got some crop on it, right? Very, very light crop. There's no need to thin this tree at all. But we're seeing really good shoot growth, because that's one of the things with all of your trees you really want to be able to have the eye for, which is, oh, cool, because a lot of people think, oh yeah, my tree's doing great, but all it's doing is leafing out every year. That is not great. That is actually very low vitality. And so you want to, the tree, we want to be seeing both leaf out, we'd love to see fruit, but sometimes that's out of our hands, and then adequate shoot growth. And seeing all of this nice shoot growth throughout the tree, and especially terminal, is a really good sign of vitality. This tree's locked in. I've got high hopes for this tree for years to come, even if it's not this year for the fruit.
Did you prune the base growth?
Yeah, what is all this? Yeah, rootstock suckers. So suckers are kind of just a general term, but like in the tree, a lot of times what we'll call the strong shoots that are coming up the middle, we call those water sprouts. That's usually coming from the trunk or the main scaffolds. And then anything that's coming from the ground, those are rootstock suckers. I don't think I need to get into what a rootstock is. I think everybody's pretty well aware. Certain rootstocks will sucker more than others. And so once you get the little forest like this, you know, it sucks. It's just a management, I won't say nightmare, but just like bad dream, okay? Because really what happens, let's remember back to the pruning class. What are the two types of cuts we make?
Heading and thinning.
Heading and thinning, there it is. And so if we just go down and we just chop all these towards the base, what is that? Heading cuts. What is the response we get from heading cuts? So if you want to have a double forest, yeah, you come through and you just kind of cut it all kind of willy-nilly right at the base there. And it's just gonna, you know? And instead, if you really want to be effective, you kind of got to get in there, dig around the root crown, and you actually make removal cuts or thinning cuts at the point of attachment from it's usually from the lateral roots, right when they start to spread out. It takes some time. Takes some time. There's actually one, somebody exposed over here, maybe we'll see it. There was actually like a trunk. Yeah. Okay, so we're looking pretty good with vitality over here. So now as we move along, what are we seeing here?
No shoot growth.
No shoot growth. What do we say? We say shoot.
That's so strange that it's just one tree up from the...
Right? Yep. Yeah, and so both of these trees, same variety, so there's mixed varieties, right? And so you can tell one variety up to where Finn is, and then these two, different variety, and then another variety here, which are the Incas, which we'll get to. But these, yeah, minimal to no shoot growth, a peaked kind of color, even some chlorosis over here where it's like really bleached out, veinal chlorosis, where that just means the veins are a dark green and then the rest of the leaf is yellow. Generally going to be some kind of micronutrient deficiency. Usually if it's just a full paling, which we saw kind of over here, which is just like the whole leaf, there's not that veinal chlorosis. The overall paling is a nitrogen issue. And then when we get the veinal chlorosis, it's usually more of a micronutrient thing. So this would be a great candidate for tissue sampling, right? And maybe even if you see your whole block and it's like doing pretty good and then you've got problem trees like this, do just these. Have these separate from the rest of the orchard.
Could you prune it back because there's no fruit on it? Totally?
So if we pruned it back right now, we could. What would we be losing though? Leaves. We love leaves. Leaves are the solar panels for the trees. And so it is. I used to be in that same camp of like, all right, I got kind of that tough love thing where it's like with trees, it's like, if you're not performing, I want to prune it so hard back to see if I get a response, right? But by doing that, I'm kind of kneecapping it even more. I'm weakening the tree even more.
The reason I ask is because I didn't prune.
Ah.
So if it's stressed, I guess probably, I don't know.
Yes.
I'm wondering if I didn't get the pruning done in the fall or in the winter,
right?
Then
can you prune now?
This issue already.
Right.
Yeah. Can you prune?
You can prune now for sure. Knowing that it is going to be more weakening for the tree. And so I would say instead of necessarily pruning, do a tissue sample, see what's going on, and seeing if you can address the issue that way first, right? But yeah, I would say, you know, a lot of people would see these trees and they'd be like, oh yeah, they look good. They're green, right? Tree's green. but I'm going to call this a very low vitality tree. I do like the leaves. The turgor looks good, but the color is a little light and no shoot growth. Remember, we want the trees to have that balance of shoot growth, leaf out, and hopefully fruit. Okay. Okay, so as we move down here, what do we see? How are these looking?
Low vitality.
Low vitality, that's right. And so, you know, certain varieties, and I'm not sure, do you know these? Is it a pluot?
Don't have my phone on me.
Yeah. Some plums are just lanky, especially pluots, and they could be Flavor King pluot. Flavor King pluots do this. Real lanky, they don't put on a lot of shoots even from the trunks here. But this is also, you know, something to be concerned of, you know, the lack of shoot growth and overall kind of the color isn't too bad, but that's something's going on. So, these trees are not getting supported in the way that they need to, right? Okay. Keep on coming down, because we're coming down this way, because then we're going straight into the, we're going to thin in a little bit, but we're going to go, actually we could thin right now. This tree, for whatever reason, is, as you've all noticed, very little plum crop, right? Except for this tree. Why? People, why? And there's just always the anomalies, right? You think there's a consistent theme in the orchard. And this is probably a variety that's also out here, and there's no crop on those either. But this tree's got a crop. Vitality is what? Okay to low, because again, a little bit of shoot growth, but with a hard prune that was done on this tree, in the winter. Remember, what wintertime pruning, is it a stimulating or weakening? Stimulating time to prune. So with a hard prune like this, I would have hoped to see a lot more strong shoots this time of year. Just not seeing it. Okay. So fairly low vitality, and I'm picking up a theme here where it's just, okay, most likely there wasn't a cover crop in here this year. Is that right? Yeah, so no cover crop, so we didn't get any of the nitrogen from the legumes. No compost, no nutrient. Yeah, they're just missing something. Would I count this orchard out and be like, rip it out? No. You could address all of these issues probably even this year and see a good response, right? We're looking for, you know, we as orchardists responding to what we're seeing. And sure, we could have maybe done something a little bit earlier, but now's the time, right after this class. So while we're here, I think people are getting, this is kind of the plum block, and so you can kind of get a feel for what we're looking for this time of year. Strong shoot growth. This is the Inca plum. If you haven't had the Inca, they are, I don't know, they could be the best Asian plum out there.
If they have plums on them.
When they crop. They don't crop super heavy. And this year, I see one.
That one's mine.
Yeah, right?
What pest is this?
Yeah, we're gonna get there.
Okay.
But this tree, as you can see, these two right here. This is the Inca. Beautiful tree, pretty good vigor, inherent vigor, and the tree has some good vitality. It's pruned hard, and we're seeing some nice shoot growth all over the place. Remember, that shoot growth is going to be next year's flowering sites. Okay, so we love it. Okay. So we're gonna, yeah.
So a quick question on these low vitality trees. When do you start thinking about age as an issue relating to vitality growth?
Yeah, great question. So we see that a lot. We're caring for a lot of aged trees. And so how long is an average lifespan for let's call it apricot or plum?
15?
Huh?
10, 15?
Like 50.
Yeah, 30 to 50 years we want to get out of an apricot or plum, right? And then we'll get to these, the peaches and nectarines. They're kind of more probably the shortest lived trees, mostly due to disease pressure, you know, out here on the coast. And if we get 20 to 30 years out of a peach tree, wow, you're stoked. If you get fruit out of 5 of those years, you're really stoked.
With any sugar in it.
Yeah, exactly. Right, you're cutting your peach open and sprinkling sugar on it. Oh, that's good. And then apples and pears, I mean, those can be over 100, no problem. And so, but that's a good question though of like, okay, age does, you know, vitality, you should still, we've worked with 100-plus-year-old apple trees putting on 2 feet of shoot growth every year, right? And so it is a marker for, you know, okay, how well is the tree doing? And sure, everything has a lifespan. And so it could be a sign that, and I swear, trees, when they're about to die, they are prolific in fruiting, right? Because what's their goal? Reproduce, right? And so they'll send out a lot of fruit and seed and then keel over. Okay, so we're going to move into the thinning portion. And so this is actually great. Now we don't have to walk all the way over there. So thinning plums and apricots, it's about the same. What distance do we want in between each piece of fruit? Nobody?
So they don't touch.
So they don't touch now or when they're ripe?
When they're ripe.
Ah. And so when I look at this, this cluster of fruit, right? If I were to leave all of that fruit there, how much bigger do I expect that fruit to get? Not much. Yeah, there's only so much nutrient and water going to all of that fruit, right? And so if we leave all of it, it's all going to get dispersed to all, and it's not going to get that much bigger. The other thing, once we get pit hardening in the center here, the fruit is not going to size up anymore. We are not quite there. It's still soft, right? Because I can once the blade can't softly just cut through this pit, it's pretty much it. You know, the fruit is not going to enlarge, and so we want to get all of the fruit thinned on our stone fruit before that pit hardening, which is pretty soon. So again, Okello, you got to come out after. And then, so how do we thin? I would look at this cluster here and say, okay, I'm going to have one fruit here. You're going to get one here. And then when I'm thinning, and I always get on my crew for this, where it's like, you know, it's real easy to do this. Oh yeah. And sure, on a tree like this where there's not a lot of fruit, and it's going to take you 5 minutes no matter what. But if this thing's loaded, you got to move. You got fruit all the way down here. 2 hands, right? And so you're using 2 hands, and you're going pretty quick. Getting about 2 inches. When you have clusters like this, I just do a little thing like that to get the first bit off. And then I go in for the little cleanup, right?
You know, try to leave the bigger ones that are already
Yeah, you can, but if you've only got a few trees, sure, you can kind of be, you definitely don't want the doubles. Any of the ones that are like sharing a spur, definitely go down to singles. If you can, you get your eye to it pretty quick, and then if you can peel back the ones, you know, the smaller ones, leave the bigs. It's a good strategy. This is a really easy stage to thin because they're big. You don't want to do it when they're too small. They don't pop off very easy. And so then you're just going around every 2 inches or so. And so then the fruit's going to size up well. If it's a really heavy crop, the other issue could be alternate bearing, right? So it's pretty quick. Like I said, two hands. With plums, you can kind of twist, or it's kind of a peeling back. We even with apricots, when they get to that size, we learned this technique from an orchard just over the hill in Morgan Hill. Bamboo stick with some inner tube on the end, and then it's and you kind of just tap. When it's a heavy crop, it works pretty well.
And you just leave the
You just leave them on the ground.
compost.
Yep, they just decompose. Yeah, there's no issues with pests or anything like that. So from where we started, this looks pretty good about how much fruit. Remember, that was all a bunch of clusters. Now those are all going to size up really nice. Those are going to be very valuable fruit because there's only about 100 pieces of fruit in the plums here. So that is thinning with plums. We'll take a look at apples here in a second. Plums, apricots, it's all about 2 to 3 inches between each piece of fruit. Let's look at the peaches here, see if there are any. Oh, I see 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to go right into our favorite topic, pest and disease. Got a time check?
Do people ever thin flowers instead of...
11, 18.
Perfect. Say it again?
Do people ever thin flowers?
Yeah, the question is about thinning flowers, blossom thinning instead of fruit thinning. You can, but generally not, because you don't know. A lot of times, trees, especially let's say cherries, each type of fruit is different, but you don't know what the crop is going to be, and so just by bloom. So with cherries, you can have a there's beautiful bloom, and yet have almost no cherries, right? And so if you're relying on thinning the bloom, then you might be kind of getting nothing, right? So wait till you see the crop and then you thin. Yeah.
Good syntax.
Okay, so peaches and nectarines. Not that we're gonna have to thin anything here, but like we all know how big peaches and nectarines get. We hope they're like that. And so, whereas plums and apricots are more like that. And so, we're looking at more about 6 inches apart, peach and nectarine. And, you know, it's actually not bad. Oh no, I can thin, look, check it out. All those 3, you wouldn't want all 3 there. I'd only want 1. That's good. And so, I just dropped something I want to show you, which is, oh yeah, this. When you get doubles, right? You can see this. When they're attached, it's generally a sign that there wasn't adequate irrigation the year before. So it's another one of those things as you start to learn your trees is, oh, last year, what happened last year? Because I'm seeing something kind of weird this year. And when you're thinning, you'll see in peaches and nectarines a lot of doubles. If you're seeing a lot of doubles, irrigation was not adequate after the crop even probably happened, right? So after the crop happens, just make sure you keep up with irrigation because it's setting up flower buds for the following year. Okay?
Is that like 2 fused flower buds or like?
That's a great question.
Yeah, is it like fasciation like in tomatoes or is it different?
God, that's a good question. I always just relate it to not good water year before. But yeah, it's weird because you try to thin them apart and it doesn't work. Yeah.
Well, and if you leave them on, you'll get a fruit that ripens unevenly.
Yeah, exactly. And so usually whenever I see doubles, we just thin them off. Kind of like, here's one. Oh no, that one's actually good. But same deal. Stone fruit are really easy to thin. It's just a little peeling back, and you wait till they're about yay big. Yeah. Other questions on thinning stone fruit? Great. So now we get to talk about pest and disease. Yay! What is this? Peach leaf curl. Such an easy one to remember. Hey, why does this plum have peach leaf curl?
It doesn't.
Yeah, good one. Trick question. We just made it. We're starting a YouTube channel for orchard keepers, and that was one of the first videos we made. Peach leaf curl or curly plum aphid, right? And so this is a total pain in the butt. And so this is something that you're going to see, and back to the whole thing of being proactive or then responsive in season. And so really, new leaves emerge, hey, great, and they're cruising, they're growing, unfurling, looking healthy, nice. Then you see, okay, new leaves emerging and they're starting to get distorted and a little cupping and curling in like that. That is a sign of the curly plum aphid. And I'd say it's the #1 pest insect affecting our plum trees. Anybody know the best control? What did you say? Prayers. Lots of prayers and candles. So in the dormant season, again, this is a proactive approach to pest control. It's like knowing that, okay, hey, yeah, it is so prevalent around here on plum trees. In the dormant season, even a delayed dormant, that just means like the tree is starting to wake up, where you start to see some swell on the buds. Coming out with a dormant oil spray and blasting the trees, because that's going to be smothering eggs and smothering insects, adults that are starting to wake up. And that's going to really help curb the issue. Because once you start seeing this curling of the leaf, it's kind of too late, right? Because with any soft-bodied insect, we really need to get contact with all these organic sprays. Sure, there's conventional sprays where it's a systemic, right? You put it in the ground or you spray the tree and then it's in the vascular system, and so then when the pest eats it, it dies. But that's gnarly, right? Are we using those? No. And so any oils we use, any soaps we use, we actually have to get contact with the pest. And so it's ingenious for these aphids. You know, they inject a toxin into the leaf and it cups and curls around it. So once you see it, you want to be on top of it. You see a little bit, and then you would come out and you can do a proactive spray for the rest of the tree during the leaf out. And that could be any oil that you use. So again, we're back. We do if it's just a little bit. But the other thing is like, again, these leaves are still photosynthesizing, right? And so, you know, depending on the vitality of the tree, you may want to pause before you start pruning it all out. That said, it definitely can affect the fruit quality big time. It actually can make the fruit less sweet, less flavorful.
Also, a lot of times it attracts ants.
Oh, big time. And that's a great point. Most likely, if we really looked, we've got ant trails all the way up here because the ants farm these soft-bodied insects. So a lot of times, you're going to notice it, then you're going to find your ants. You could wrap tanglefoot around the trunk, stop the ants. Then you could do, you could prune a little bit out if it's kind of isolated, and then start a spray program once a week, because then all the new leaves, remember, these leaves are never going to look good. These are just going to drop off. But any of the new leaves, and you can almost see it now, they're actually getting over it. You can see like, okay, here was about a 2-week period of infestation and feeding, and now new leaves look good, okay?
For now.
Yeah, because all of these aphids, they have multiple instars, multiple phases of life. And so they are in the crawling phase here, eating at the leaves. Then once they develop their wings, they fly off in summer over in the vegetables or flowering plants, right? And then they come back in the fall to then overwinter on the trees, okay? So curly plum aphid is one pest that we see a lot of right now. The other one in the stone fruit is the mealy aphid. Anybody know that one? That one produces an amazing amount of honeydew. And the coolest thing is, the thing we did last year, we tried this out. So the thing about the mealy aphid, it can't process sugars, and that's why it's just always dripping, you know, and there's all this exudate, and it's just a sweet exudate. If you have a really bad infestation, you look at the ground, and it'll look like somebody watered the ground because there's so much dropping. So what we learned though, since the pest can't process the sugars and it just has to excrete it, we added molasses to the tank mix when we were spraying to increase the sugar. And so then they couldn't even process it enough to excrete it, and so it just like killed them. So cool.
Mad scientist.
Yeah.
So is that like an osmotic thing that you're putting enough pressure on the outside that it can't come out?
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's just too much. implodes.
Really Wonka them.
I loved it. I hope it was good for them.
Did the
At least they went on like a sugar high,
Crashed out.
right?
molasses clog your sprayers?
No, you mix it well. Yeah, mix it well. Yeah, and you can look. We didn't come up with it. We were like we listened to some guy talk about it. It's so cool. I mean, there's so many different ways to deal, and a lot of them probably don't work. But that one worked. Okay, so that's kind of soft-bodied insects for the plum trees, apricots, lepidopteras. I mean, are we going to talk about that? There's a peach twig borer. Anybody have cots or peaches and nectarines, and you open it up, and like right around the pit, you see this little larvae. That you've seen that?
Mostly in North Carolina in the south.
Yeah, there you go, big time. And so that would be, being on top of that, and if you know you have that pest pressure, you'd be using a spinosad spray now-ish as well, and then that will kill the emerging larvae from the eggs. So those are kind of the ones. Anybody else dealing with pests, different pests for your plums or apricots? Somebody asked about, let's see, we can kind of see it here. There's a little bit, shot hole fungus, right? Anybody get that? Where it starts as little brown patches on the leaf, and then eventually those fall out, and then it looks like the leaf has been shot with a shot hole, shot holes. And so it's a fungal disease. Best time to control it is when? Winter, yeah, early winter. And so doing anything about it now really doesn't do anything. It's the leaf is already infected. So back to that thing of like, reacting or responsive and being like, okay, yep, next year. Identify what the pest is, learn the life cycle, learn when the control is, and then get ready to do it for next year. Okay?
About leaf or pears?
Yeah, we're gonna switch over to palm fruit in here in a second. And then just a tiny bit on this. I mean, it's kind of cool. It's very alien-esque, Peach leaf curl, which is a fungal organism. When's the best time to control for this? That's right at leaf drop, and then again at bud swell. If we spray anything now, does it do anything? No. So again, that reactive versus responsive. And so knowing, okay, yeah, peach leaf curl.
But it won't get worse. It's not like it spreads now.
No, well, if it keeps raining, it could. But hopefully the rains are done. And so then the leaves will drop. Great time to feed again if you haven't fed. Or if you've fed, feed them again, because they're going to have to regrow all of these leaves, right? Okay.
What about like Eutypa?
Yeah, Eutypa or any of the wood rot organisms, pretty much all of those need to get pruned out. There's no treatments for those with different any kind of spray materials. So whenever you would see, I think of like Eutypa, bacterial canker, fire blight, kind of all in that same category of when you see it, you got to prune it out into clean wood, which can be a lot of times a lot of the tree, unfortunately.
Yeah, I thought you said last time I asked, you said like a foot past it or something.
Yeah, and I was looking for some fire blight here in the apples, and for whatever reason, and I have zero idea why, fire blight does not affect apples on the coast. You could even just get up into Scotts Valley and you see fire blight in the apples. You get over the hill, forget about it. Up in
Pears, though.
Washington, yeah. But in apples are relatively safe. I've probably seen 2 strikes in 20 years in apples on the coast. Pears, totally different story. And why is that? Nobody has given me a clear answer, right? But we'll take it here on the coast. But yeah, fire blight's a real issue, especially when we get rainy spring times. And you've got to prune it out 12 inches below the canker. But I was looking for a strike because it's a little deceiving. Sometimes it looks really bad and it's black, and you think that's the extent of the infection. But you look at the bark, and there's actually more lesion down, which it doesn't look black, and you got to go down to the bottom of that, and then go 12 inches.
Is that something where, like, if you make a cut, you can see it inside? Like,
Yeah,
the bacteria?
in the really dead parts, but you can't really see it where the kind of the vanguard at the rate where that canker is traveling. It's harder to see. Yeah.
And soap and water is enough on the tool after that, or what were you?
A little more like alcohol, or we use Lysol, but we're figuring out, like, because and when you really have a lot of strikes, you got to be dipping your tools every cut. So we're making like a little like bowl of alcohol. So it's like snip, dink, snip, right? It's a pain in the butt. Yeah. Okay, anything last remaining on stone fruit before we look at the apples?
Actually, I had one thought on thinning that I just thought of. Like with apples, we were kind of trying to choose like the best, like leave like the crown apple. Are you doing any of that thinking when you're pruning or thinning plums and apricots, or it's just kind of more for space?
Yeah, just space. And really, it's like when you've got a lot of fruit, you're just moving, right? You just kind of go as fast as you can. Yeah, because just knowing and trusting that like what you do leave, that's going to be the where the sinks are, right? Yeah. Okay, let's go right over here to the mutsus.
Yeah. How do we do, boss? How do we do?
Yeah. These are amazing trees. Who here is growing the mutsu? Anybody? Yeah, mutsu is great. Really wonderful apple. Big apple, like you can share it with like 2 friends. And really sweet, really tasty. High inherent vigor. And so if you're looking at this, and these are older trees, I think these ones were planted in the 80s. And so, we're getting close to, 40, 50 years.
Yeah, we're 52 years old.
There you go.
52.
Nice. 52 years. And so these things are going to go for another 50, right? And so Ocala did a great job pruning all of these. They really needed a pretty good renewal prune. And so would you say, or let me back it up, in terms of stages of growth from stone fruit into pome fruit, what do you notice?
There's blossoms and fruit.
Blossoms and fruit right now. What else? What I'm looking at is the amount, so let's say these Incas that have that high vitality, look how long the shoot growth is, right? And then looking at these apples, it's just that indicator of, hey, who blooms first, right? All the stone fruit bloom first, and then apples come on after that. And so these trees, I think they really appreciated the prune. And so if I'm looking at it in terms of vitality, what would you all say?
Good response.
Great response, right? I'm seeing really good unfurling of all of the new shoots. We're still growing, which is great. We don't want to see that terminal bud yet. And sure, we're still in some bloom, and we're set, and we've got the rosy apple aphid. And so different stages of growth. You may do, if you are going to do tissue sampling, you may do, you would definitely do, plums, and you may even wait another week because you want to get older growth. You want to have about 12 inches of shoot growth to get new leaf and old leaf, right? But these are all unfurling nicely. Yeah, quite pleased with how they're looking. With thinning, it's really easy. For the most part, we're just going down to 1 fruit per cluster. And so as we can see, this here was 1 flower, or 1 flower bud, and then there could have been multiple, it could have been 6 or 7 flowers, 4 of them set. How many fruit do we want? 1. Real simple, remember, it's not 1 hand, 2 hands, and it's it's a simple kind of peeling back to the 1, right? And so you get real fast at it. Not a ton of crop this year, and that's to be expected with kind of a heavier prune. But yeah, 1 fruit per. We look over here, same deal. No, just leave the flowers. And so this is one of those things I was saying in the beginning of just time. And it's like, when you get a staggered bloom, we could have fruit, this size, which is, definitely needs to be thinned. We're like right there. And yeah, look at that. It's still tight bud, right? Or just pollinated, right? And so that means you're gonna have to thin now and come back for another pass, which just takes time. So this is how you do all of your apples. How much do we thin pears?
2.
Yeah, 2 to 3 maybe. We're not too worried. They can touch. They're still gonna size up. Sometimes we don't even thin pears. A lot of times we don't. And so pears are really easy in terms of thinning. So now we're gonna talk pests. What is that one?
Oh, you gave it away.
I know. Let's see, were you listening though? Rosy apple aphid. And again, it does that, injects that toxin into the leaf, covers it up. And then again, doing the delayed dormant oil spray will also really help in any issues. And then when you do see this is one of those ones, I think you were asking about pruning it out. Yeah. See the fruit? So this aphid, it not only affects the leaves, which is really ugly. It also, you can see the shoot here. I'll take these leaves off so you can really see it. How is that stem? It's kind of curly-coo. It's like, which is not ideal. So we don't want that long term. And then you look at the fruit. The fruit's already kind of puckered too. Don't want it. It's not going to be high quality fruit. So with this pest, I definitely do, I prune it out. And then I would do kind of spot spray with either a soap or a horticultural oil. There's a product called Pure Crop, which isn't even registered as a pesticide. The base is corn and soy, and it's really, really effective. It's completely harmless to beneficial insects, but it's crazy expensive, unfortunately. But we've been using that because we're trying to create habitat ecosystem in the orchard, and so we don't want to be killing all of the good bugs.
So what is it called? Pure Crop is a what?
I mean, we still call it an insecticide, but it would be an oil-based insecticide. But it's so benign, it's not even registered as pesticide. Okay, so that is one of the main pests we're going to see for apples. The other one is fire blight, but fortunately, who here deals with fire blight in their apples? Yeah, you got it. Where's your site?
Over the hill.
You're over the hill, that's right. Yeah, it's a real bummer. Are you seeing it bad this year?
Not necessarily worse than other years, yeah.
Yeah,
So far.
yeah. And then, so with pears on the coast, or apples and pears over the hill, it's, you can have the shoot blight, which is like, you're gonna notice it about this length, and then the new emerging shoots will start to, that's the first sign, and then it turns black, and that's when you gotta cut it back. The other, so that's shoot blight. Then you've got the bud blast, which is actually just the bud itself gets blighted, and then you gotta cut those out as well. Yeah. Okay, time check.
11:42.
11:42, that's so perfect. So, what else? Got about 15 minutes, yeah.
What is it called that goes into the
Oh, codling moth.
Codling moth.
Thank you. Yes, that is one of the main pests for apples and pears.
codling moth.
Yeah. What are people doing for codling moth?
I was given by an old farmer a mixture of pneumonia and molasses.
Wow.
Put it in a jug, and put it in the tree.
Wow.
And it tracks one of the cycles.
Yes. Okay. Right. And so, yeah, homemade little concoctions there. Never heard of that one. And then who's dealing with? You're dealing with some codling moth in your trees. And then who else is dealing with codling moth? Yeah. What are you all doing? You don't know.
I'm sure they spray something.
Yeah.
And then we also just thin as thoroughly as possible.
Right. Right. With codling moth, the places that the larvae, remember it's the larvae, not the moth, that is affecting the fruit. And so, you know, any time that the fruit is touching, that is a spot that the larvae like to get in. And so singling them, doing a really good job thinning really helps. Another one is whenever you see a sting, you won't see stings yet. The first generation just happened, there's 3 generations annually. And so biofix, which was like 3 weeks ago, which just means when adult moths are mating. And so if you're doing any kind of control, you gotta
Do the twist tie thing.
Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. So you first need to know when biofix is, which is just when the adults are mating. Then from there, then it's about amount of degree days until you know that the females have laid eggs on the fruit or the buds. And then you can apply your controls. We use a product called Sidex, which is a virus, granulosis virus. You gotta be spraying it. We spray it for the first generation. It's about 4 applications once a week, right? Finn did it last night at one of our sites. That's right. So we're doing that for 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks, depending if you've got, depending on how much control you want. Then you've got a second generation and another month or so, and then a third generation. So Sidex is a great product. Spinosad is a good product. If you've got more than 5 acres, anybody? More than 5 acres of apples? Yeah? Maybe right on the edge.
We've got the multiple different sites. So.
Okay. If you got more than 5 acres, then you can use pheromone technology, where you hang the female pheromone lures in all of the trees, and so you're essentially flooding the zone with female pheromone. And so when the males wake up and they're flying around looking for the female, oh, you can't find them, and they exhaust themselves and die.
I was told it won't work for one tree.
Exactly. We've tried it at a bunch of sites. We don't have any apple sites that are over 5 acres. And we've tried, and I think we get more, right?
It attracts more, yeah.
More males, and then they find the females because it's not spread out enough. So I don't totally recommend that unless, you've got the acreage.
Do you find that sanitation, with thinning your fruit, pruning and stuff, makes a difference for codling moth?
Yes. So I almost got there a second ago. And another, it's probably soonish. It's kind of now you're going to start to notice stings, right, on the fruit, and they're still on the tree. If you go through and remove all of the stung fruit, then that larvae, which is going to hang out and chew around in that apple for growing apple for like a week, that isn't going to then drop out, pupate, have a second generation.
So when you're thinning your fruit, it's get those off-site, out of there.
If you know you've got a codling moth issue, yeah, exactly. Yeah, because sometimes if we're just starting a new site, let's see.
She found it. I'm seeing if that's it.
Oh yeah, let's see.
I think there's a worm on there too, or
yeah, it could be. Oh yeah, it is. Oh wow, that's awesome. That is a codling moth larvae. Look at that.
No, pero ahí está también. Se quedó una manzana.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Look at that. Oh, wow. Nice eye.
Good catch. Oh.
Seriously.
Oh, there.
That's amazing.
Wow.
And so, that one, unless it could be, there's other larvae that look just like it, but it's a little large for this time of year. But that's what you find in the apple. Usually the ones that you would find crawling on the outside are going to be, you won't find them because they're so small. And it's not until you see the frass coming out of the entry hole that, this is one of my favorite things to do too.
Cut them in half.
Cut them! Decapitation.
It's the little things.
I know. Yeah, so it can be a real problem in orchards. It's kind of the number one pest because unlike scab, like it's cosmetic, so if you've got a direct market thing going and maybe your customers can deal with a little bit of scab on the fruit. Codling moth, nobody wants to bite into an apple with, you know, worm poop and...
friends, when they come by to pick the pears, we say, just cut them first.
Yeah.
Don't take a bite.
Right. That's a hard...
The thing is finding a worm in your pear is finding half a worm.
Yes, right. That's a hard selling point at the farmer's market. Yeah. Just cut them first. You know, that's not going to fly. Okay, what else?
To correct what I said about the twist ties, we do those for light brown apple moth, not for copper.
Oh, there you go.
Because we have a huge, like, elbam problem.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
Pescadero. I don't know if it was brought in by someone, and now we have a huge problem where, I don't know.
Interesting.
Teresa's, like, on everyone.
Okay, yeah, elbam. That was, what year was that? I don't even remember. They were doing aerial sprays over Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
That was crazy. I haven't heard much about it. We don't see it much. We see it more in the garden, but not so much in the trees.
What was that called? Light brown?
Apple moth.
They kind of get everything on the farm. So that we have the twist ties. It covers the entire ranch, and they're like spaced out in a very specific way and changed out at a very specific time.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing.
Yep. Cool. So I think that's probably about it. Does anybody have more questions specific to your growing? Yeah.
Just a quick recap on
Yeah.
thinning is size, flavor, and is that correct?
Of why we thin?
Yeah.
Yes. Size for sure. And then it really helps with certain pest control. Because the other one, which I didn't mention because we weren't seeing it in any of these plums, which is brown rot. Brown rot can be a real pain in apricots and plums during really wet springs, where it can kill blossoms, it can kill shoots. Then later on, it affects the fruit, where you get that gray mold on the fruit. And so if you don't thin, remember thinning can help because there's more, if there are rain events or even just foggy weather, it will help dry down that fruit. And so there'll be less disease, fungal infection on the fruit too. Yeah. Anything else? Wonderful. So I think this is the last one. So good luck, everybody.